So the first tool that we're going to talk about is the chop saw. You might also hear it being called a miter saw or a sliding compound miter saw. The reason it's called a sliding compound miter saw is because it slides in and out to make wider cuts, and it can also make compound angled cuts. So you can adjust the angle of the cut using this trigger here, which adjusts the angle side to side, and it locks back at 0. You can also adjust the tilt of the blade. There's a dial on the back that allows the blade to tilt from side to side. So you can do compound angles by adjusting both angled adjustments. So when you first use the chop saw, you want to make sure that it's been reset to 0. Sometimes someone else might have had it at a different setting, and we don't want to go and make an angled cut if that's not what you're planning to do. Chop saws really do one thing, and that is chopping the wood across the direction of the grain or the board. So they're great for taking longer lengths of lumber and cutting them down into smaller pieces for your projects. I'm going to show you what happens if you're cutting through a thicker piece of wood or that piece is bowed. You might find that when you put the piece down on the miter saw, there is a gap underneath or at the back along the fence. And we want to make sure that there's no gaps right below where the blade is going to be cutting or behind it. The reason for this is that if we were to cut this piece right now, as the blade is cutting through the wood and there's space underneath, those two pieces of wood are going to slowly come down and pinch the blade, and that can cause something called kickback, where the blade kicks back towards the operator. It can also cause burning or sometimes for the blade to get stuck in that piece of wood. So to prevent that, all we're going to do is flip that board upside down, and that way there's no gap, and what we have is a well-supported piece of wood. It's okay if it rocks from side to side, as long as that gap in the middle isn't there. If you're cutting through thicker material, such as this 1.5" lumber, it's a good idea to do the cut in 2 passes rather than trying to go all the way through at once. This just reduces the friction on the blade. But if you're cutting through thinner material, you can go ahead and do it in 1 pass. When we are cutting rough lumber, we want to make sure that we chop off the ends of the wood first using the chop saw. This just allows us to remove any splinters or cracks in the end of the wood. There may be staples or just rough ends that we want to remove. So the first cut I would make is to chop off the rough end, and then I would go and cut my wood to its rough length. When you're using the chop saw, we want to make sure that we use one continuous motion. So we're going to be pulling out with the blade spinning, down, back, and up in one motion. And we're keeping the blade spinning the entire time until it's back at its resting phase. If we were to stop the blade halfway through the cut, it could burn or pinch or bind against the blade. I also want to make sure that I'm standing to one side of the blade. We don't want to be standing right in the middle. Again, if any kickback were to happen, we just want to keep ourselves out of the way. You can operate the chop saw using either hand. You can use your left hand supporting the piece with your right, or you can use your right hand supporting your piece with the left. If you're cutting many longer pieces and you want to make sure you get a repeatable dimension, you can use these flip stops that are equipped on the chop saw. You can just adjust the flip stop to the dimension that you want and lock it in place. And that just allows you to slide up your piece of wood before you cut. Make sure that you are supporting the wood on the side that the flip stop is, rather than supporting the wood over here and using that flip stop. That just means that there isn't going to be a leftover piece of wood that is pinched between the stop and the blade that isn't being supported by your hand. If you ever find that the blade isn't working or you need to make some adjustments, this tool just has a battery. It doesn't plug into the wall. So you can release that battery and charge it or remove it for making adjustments. We want to make sure that we keep our hands outside of this circle around the blade. And so if you are cutting something smaller, you can always use a clamp to hold it in place rather than risking your hands being close to the blade. So you can just clamp it down and then make your cut without having to hold that piece of wood. If you're cutting something really long, it might not be stable on the miter saw bed. So you can always get someone to help you by supporting the piece on the other side or setting up a roller stand. But we want to make sure that that piece of wood isn't going to fall to the floor after we cut it. So I'll do a quick demo cut. Once again, I'm going to be pulling out, down, back, and up in one continuous motion with the blade spinning the entire time. To turn this on, you need to pull the small trigger here and squeeze the larger trigger. And we're going to turn the dust collection on. It's just this vacuum over here.